be. When the Nuer are fighting, defending themselves, you call them terrorists. But when you are defending yourself, you want to be called human being. We all have the same blood. We all fought for South Sudan together, and South Sudan must serve all of us. We must know how to live as South Sudanese. This disparity must be addressed. I firmly believe that every life is equally valuable. Even these people that died don't deserve to die. But they die in a battlefield. They were soldiers. They are not women and children. It is not acceptable that one group suffering is ignored because of who they are. When Nuer individuals are killed, we must all condemn it. When Dinka are lost, we must likewise condemn it. All 64 tribes of South Sudan deserve equal condemnation and equal protection. I must also share a painful truth. When the commissioner intervened, he handed over 4 boys to the commissioner of the Dinka community on the same side. This Dinka commissioner, acting immediately, deployed a fire squad that killed the 2 boys of that 4 boys. The Dinka community then accused them, saying, these are thieves. We cannot keep thieves among us. The Nuer are thieves, and these accusations sparked the war. If you don't know where this war came from, is by killing the Nuer children, those 2 boys, and you call them thieves. You call them terrorists, and you say they deserve to die. So these people have families. The law should have taken their own hands. And that's why the governor of Unity State need to be asked. Even when he was told that these people were killed, if he didn't know, then why he did not act? Why he did not call people? Why he did not talk about it? So that means that they want even the Nuer leaders that are put there are marginalizing their own Nuer people so that they can continue to be in power. Thank you so much. Continue abusing me, but the truth have to be said, and I will say it, and the whole world know the truth. You can call me all those names. They will never write themselves on my body, or they will even remove my cheek. I will continue to be rude, and everything continue. I acknowledge that amidst many unverified reports, there were a lot of fake reports that are coming in. They are saying General Puljang ordered these people. They are saying a lot of things. If you don't know, General Puljang have been protecting people, the Dinka community from that side, not to fight, not to fight those people. So when today you are coming out and you are saying General Puljang is the one that is fighting you, you are ungrateful. You are an ungrateful community. This is the person you are supposed to be appreciating, because you have been trying their level best to make sure they fight their own people. General Puljang fight the Nuer people so that they don't come and fight with the Dinka community. But today is the same person that you are attacking, that you are abusing, that you are saying that went and killed these people. So when you know this, know very well that you are also fighting another, you are also creating another problems for South Sudan. Because generals that have sacrificed for peace, not for Nuer not to fight, the Dinka, the Nuer of Bentiu not to fight that time. You need to know that whatever you are doing is not right. And human right doesn't apply to one community and then it doesn't apply to another community. Human right apply to all community, and it must remain as so. It's okay, thank you. I paid the price. It's okay, because I will be so happy to die for my people. I will be so happy to die for the truth. So you cannot threaten me. I've been in prison. I've been tortured. There's nothing that is going to be new to me. The truth have to be said, that you have failed South Sudan. And I will read to you later on what it was said. It was said and it have happened. Dr. John Garang said that the Dinka Barghazal should not be the first to lead South Sudan, because they will consolidate power and it will not be easy for South Sudan. And this is what have happened today. This is what have happened today, and you have destroyed South Sudan. You have put South Sudan for one community, for one region, and not anymore. Enough is enough. This year is a year of revolution. It's a year that South Sudan is going to be free, and South Sudan is going to be for South Sudanese. How it's going to happen, I don't know. But we must make sure that even if we have to call Trump and go on our knees to make sure that Trump come and take out President Kiir, Trump will come and take out President Kiir. Because President Kiir doesn't listen to document. The whole world have written document to President Kiir begging him, please go back to peace agreement. He refused. So the world will act. If you think what happened to Venezuela is very far from South Sudan, if you think what happened to Iran is very far to South Sudan, God is going to free us through a freedom fighter that is going to fight for us. If you think we cannot fight for ourselves, God is going to fight for us. I acknowledge that amidst unverified report there is a potential for misinformation. However, if these atrocities have indeed occurred, I condemn them unequivocally. No one deserves to be killed. We must all stand together in demanding equality, justice, and an end to ethnic violence. This must be brought to a halt. As a human rights advocate, I urge that President Salva Kiir Mayardit and his government to be held accountable, that they should leave power, and that justice must be served. President Kiir must go. When one life is silent, another one is heard, the whole nation loses its values, its voices. By Ruth, Nyalel, James Sky, hashtag WordPress, Waishta, Truth, hashtag viral, hashtag IGAD, hashtag 64 tribe, hashtag C International, African Union Commission, and this is a movement of truth. One minute. A call for accountability and unity in our community. We address the members of our community, especially those directly involved, with clarity and resolve. The action and decision that have caused hurt and division cannot be ignored. We call on all individuals responsible to acknowledge the impact of their choices and to take responsibility for healing the harm done. At the same time, we reaffirm our commitment to the broader community, to fostering respect, accountability, and unity. Our goal is a future where every member, past, present, and future, can engage with trust and confidence. Let this be a moment of reflection, correction, and collective growth so that together we can build a stronger, fairer, and more inclusive community. To the people of South Sudan, all 64 tribes, our African family, a call to peace, unity, and African sovereignty. Dear brothers, sisters of South Sudan, we the people of 64 tribes of South Sudan stand at a critical moment in our history. After years of suffering, massacres, displacement, going to refugees places, being in IDP camps, dying in the rivers, dying in the swamps, dying of anger, dying of rape, dying of thirst, everybody have become traumatized and reckless division. We must remember this one truth. Peace is the most important thing. Peace is the foundation upon which a nation will rise or fall. We have witnessed too many betrayals, too many promises broken as we face this movement. We must call upon ourselves and our African brothers and sisters to act, and to act now. Let us build a future where no tribe is left behind, where every citizen from every corner of our country is valued with equality. We call upon each of the 64 tribes of South Sudan, Acholi, Aja, Anuak, Atwot, Avukaya, Azande, Bai, Baka, Balanda, Bor, Balanda Viri, Banda, Bari, Binga, Bingo, Boya, Burun, Didinga, Dinka, Dogotana, Flata, Feroge, Golo, Imatong, Idris, Iye, Jurbali, Jurchol, Kakwa, Kara, Kelku, Kuku, Lago, Lokoya, Lotipit, Lutuko, Lubwara, Lubong, Maban, Madi, Manaja, Managayat, Moro, Morokodo, Mudari, Mundu, Murle, Dogo, Gule, Nyangatom, Nyangwara, Pari, Pojulu, Sere, Shat, Shiluk, Suri, Tened, Tid, Toposa, Uduk, Uror, Yulu, Nuer, and Idris. We implore you to lay down old grievances. Our division have been exploited. Now is the time we unite in peace. Peace will be our weapon. Peace will be our power. We also call upon our African neighbors. South Sudan is the youngest nation, but it is our collective responsibility as Africans to ensure that it does not fall. African Union, we call on you to lead. Ethiopia, we look to you. By 2060 or 2063, bring us an African army built in unity. Each country will contribute 2,000 youths, trained not as Dinka, not as Nigerians, not as Ethiopians, not as Kenyans, not as Ugandans, not as Tanzanians, not as West Africa, but as the African army that is going to unite and support the African Union. And these are going to be the peacekeepers in Africa. This army will embody Africanism, not a tribal or a national allegiance, but allow for Africa that transcends borders. Our resources, our culture, and our pride will be ours. Our African heritage protected by us, nurtured by us. We remember the Battle of Adua, a symbol of African sovereignty. It is not only Ethiopian victory, it is an Africa. It must be celebrated across the continent as a sacred day of liberation. And to the Nuer who fought alongside Ethiopian then, your bravery still echoes today. You remind us that the struggle for freedom never dies. It lives in every step toward peace. African Union, we call on you to act. Ethiopia, we call on you to lead. South Sudan, we call on you to rise. No longer divided by leaders who profit from our pain. We are one Africa. We are one destiny. Let us choose peace, unity, and African sovereignty as our future. Respectfully, by Ruth Nyalel. My fellow citizens of the Republic of South Sudan, in that aspect when the tenth of His Excellency Salva Kiir Mayardit shall have concluded its long and eventful chapter, posturing will be confronted with the most remarkable phenomenon, population still standing. To those rare and resilient compatriots who shall remain in our body, tolerant spirit, and with only moderate astonishment at the endurance of their own existence, their own property to confer a most distinguished honor, namely the certificate of the survival. What does I mean by this? Anybody that will survive, any South Sudanese that will survive, because we have gone through a very sad, heavy time, that every South Sudanese that will survive when Salva Kiir come down and is no longer president deserve a certificate of survival. And I have already designed such certificate. The certificate is put, when I will be alive, then I will give it to you. When I will not be alive, another person that will come must issue a survival certificate, because it was not easy to survive during the reign of President Salva Kiir Mayardit. And that certificate will be a mark to show us this is a mark of sovereignty. This is a mark of tribalism. This is a mark of resilience, to always remind us we cannot go back to war. We cannot go back to tribalism. We should always protect, because when we look at that survival certificate, we will remember the things that happened to us from 2013 massacre up to today. This decoration shall not be bestowed upon the faint-hearted. It shall be reserved for those who have navigated economic fluctuations of athletic vigor, that the national currency appeared to engage in competitive. So it's not going to be for everybody, also for those who have worked for it. If you betray South Sudan's sovereignty, you will not receive that certificate. Have endured public conveniences with a compass worth of monastery, have mastered the noble science of managing, which in our refined vernacularly signify the art of flourishing in the absence of flourishing, have confronted unsteadily with that unique South Sudanese expression of philosophy resignation, we proceed. The certificate itself shall bear the following significant inscription: having persisted through trials, tribulation, and administrative curiosities, the bearer of this document may be said, without exaggeration, to have remained. Recipient may frame it, gold leaf, preserve it for the enlightenment of the grandchildren, or display it prominently as a documentary evidence of the fortune under extraordinary circumstances. Let not future generation underestimate the magnitude of this accomplishment. Survival in such season is not merely biological persistence. It is a civic achievement, a moral trumpet, and at times a mirror of miracle. Thus, when history renders its verdict, come the day prevail, let it be remembered that those who endure did not with patience, with an admirable refuse to evaporate, with mature silence, and the fainted eat of a smile. A most dutiful survival. Let me put a song, or we go to history a bit, and then from there, I want to tell you what Salva Kiir have done for us for some years. The 48 laws of powers that I told you yesterday, there's some laws that President Kiir have used to destroy South Sudan. And then that will be the start. After I finish this, I will go to speaking into Nuer language, because I want to address some few things in open, very strong, straightforward Nuer language.
Comes his education. He learns statecraft, military strategy, diplomacy, and most importantly, he learns patience. When he finally escapes and returns to Shewa in 1865, he's 21 years old and determined to rebuild his father's kingdom. Over the next 24 years, he transforms Shewa from a struggling province into the most powerful region in Ethiopia. He modernizes the army. He establishes trade relationships with European powers, carefully playing them against each other. He imports modern rifles, thousands of them, while other Ethiopian leaders cling to tradition.
I want to play something for you.
Another war is quietly gathering momentum. South Sudan is sliding towards renewed and potentially catastrophic conflict with serious implications for regional stability. The warning signs are unmistakable. The peace agreement is being deliberately dismantled. Civilians are being targeted, opposition leaders are detained, and external forces are increasingly involved. More than 3 million South Sudanese have been displaced, a 40% increase in 1 year. These are families fleeing aerial bombardment, burnt villages, and targeted ethnic violence. Military campaigns in Jonglei and Upper Nile are driving mass displacement. A commander previously identified by the Commission for Serious Crimes was filmed ordering his forces to kill civilians, sparing no one, not the elderly, not a chicken, not homes. This is not rhetoric. It is incitement to commit mass atrocity crimes. Civilians are treated as legitimate targets based on perceived political affiliation, and collective punishment prevails. Despite public distancing, the government has left him in command, raising grave concerns regarding tolerance and command responsibility. Images have emerged of civilians bound and executed. One witness testified they tied their hands and shot them one by one.
You know very well that Johnson Oloin came out and ordered and tell people when the battles was happening, when they wanted to go to Pajut and kill people, when he ordered that in the North Jonglei, nobody should be spared. They say when you go, you should not spare children, you should not spare women, you should not spare even the chicken, any living thing should be wiped out in that land. And this is what is now creating this war that we call the Benti War now. This war, I will explain to you. What does it mean? Why is the Ruac commissioner coming out and lying? Why is everybody trying to accuse General Puljang? Why are they saying that this is IO and it's only civilians? It's the civilians that went and fought with the government soldiers. But today they are turning it to look like civilians because they want to also look like, they want to cover up. They want to cover the killing of the Nuer people. They want to cover and they want to say, they want to make sure that even IO is affected. And that's why they are dragging IO name into that area. You have seen openly that the people from Mayom County came out and said there's no IO in Mayom County. So why are you lying that the IO are the one people that are fighting? Why are they saying IO? This is a strategy to cover up. It's a strategy to cover up that the Nuer people that the IO went and killed. And those were youth from Mayom. They were youth from Mayom that went and fought with soldiers, not civilians. Those are soldiers. You could see with your eyes on those videos, there's no children, there's no women. Those are men in uniform that were killed. We should always be straightforward and say the truth. So, whatever is happening, when they are calling in Puljang, today they are calling for that Puljang should be relieved in the government. They are calling for the governor of Unity State to be relieved. They are talking of a lot of things, even the governor of Warab, and there's a lot of people they want to remove today because they want to bring other people that will bring war. The governor of Unity State could not declare war, so that's why they want to remove him. Same to the governor of Warab. They want to remove them and put governors that are going to bring war, that are going to cause war, because they wanted to make it look like this, that IO were not part of this. They want to make sure that it's IO, and they want to name, to spoil the word of IO, and to also report to make sure that the report that was done by UN is covered up. And that's why you are seeing they are putting a lot of videos, a lot of pictures, and they bury them on one place. They collect all these things. Why? Because they want to show to the world that actually this was done by IO. But in reality, it was not done by IO. It was the civilians that went and did this. The civilians went and fought with the government forces. So this should always be remembered. When things happen, we should not just watch them. We should always analyze them. And whatever is happening, you should cease away. Puljang, General Puljang, don't involve yourself because they want to make sure they also put your name. We already know Paul Nang is going to be held accountable for the killing of the Nuer people in Jonglei. We also know that Johnson Uluny is going to be accountable. So this review, this UN report is what is calling for this war of unity state. It is being planned from Juba. It is not being planned from the village. It's a war that is being planned from Juba, and you should be very careful. SPLA-IO, you should be very far away from this war because this war is planned to drag you into the problems in the mess of the government. But the UN already know. Everybody already know that the IO doesn't kill civilians. The IO doesn't kill children and women. The IO only fight the government. This is something that is already seen by everybody. So we have to be very careful on how to act. This is the time to think before we act. This is the time to also plan before you act. The government is already in mess. They want to go down with everybody, but make sure they don't go down with you, my sister, my brother, my mother, or my child. I want to bring to your attention, yesterday I talked to you about 48 laws of power. This book called 48 Laws of Powers, if we compare this book with President Kiir's leadership, what do we find? Because there is something in life that is called the reality, the truth. And this is the moment of truth. This is the moment of truth. What is the moment of truth? President Kiir is, if you compare the leadership of President Kiir and the leadership on the book of 48 Laws of Powers, you will find Law 11. You will find Law 31. You will find Law 3. You will find Law 19. And what are this and Law 15? And what does these laws mean to us? And I'll explain to you one by one. And I'll also show you how this Bull community, how the Mayom County people have been used by the government, and the same people, when the people that have suffered in South Sudan, more than the rest, are the people of Mayom and the Ruac Machar. Because these people have been left in the middle, the Nuer are on this side, the government is on this side, but they are being used. The Nuer are hating them because the government is using them without us knowing that these people actually are being marginalized, are being used without us knowing. So how did that come along? There is Law 11 says, make others depend on you. Law 11 says, make others depend on you. How did Salva Kiir use this part? Kiir has often kept key military and political figures loyal by giving them power, positions, or resources rather than building strong, independent institutions. This increases independence on him personally for power and security. President Kiir make others depend on him. He's the only person who can appoint you and relieve you. So he made everybody to depend on him. When Kiir appoints you, you lobby so that he can appoint you. There's no election. We don't appoint them through election. He nominates them through decree. So this one, to make them loyal to himself, including the elites, which is The tiger, the creation of tiger is to make sure everybody depend on him, including Adud Salfa, depend on Salva Kiir. Everybody depend on Salva Kiir. So he makes sure when he appoints you, you become loyal to him. He gives you power. So you depend on him. You don't depend on anybody. So you will not care about what other people tells you. What Kiir tells you is what you do. So that is law 11 in the 48 laws of powers. If we compare this to President Kiir leadership. Law 31. Control the options. You see, you control the options. How did Salva Kiir use this? How did Salva Kiir use the 30? How did President Kiir use this law? By reshuffling top military and government roles and replacing opposition's appointees with loyalists. Kiir has shaped choices in government so that power stays with those loyal to him. This limits real political alternatives. So he used Law 31, control the options. He's the only person who decides who to be brought, who to go. This is a very important one. I will repeat and I will go slowly by slowly. This, he said, control the options. This is Law 31 in the 48 laws of powers. I told you, read this book. If you read this book, you will understand all the steps of President Kiir leadership. Sorry for that. By how did Kiir use the control the option 31, the law 31? By reshuffling top military and government roles and replacing opposition's appointees with loyalists. You see that the oppositions are coming out and complaining that their positions have been given back to the government. So this he controlled. Whoever he put there, answer to President Kiir. Positions. Kiir has shaped choices in government so that the power stays with loyal to him. This limits real political alternatives. After doing all this drama, he picked all the important people that could be a threat to him, including the first vice president, and put him into under house arrest. President Kiir always wants to make himself look like a savior to the South Sudanese. A very good example, he used somebody all of us, even children, have seen. He used Benjamin Bolmel or Dr. Benjamin Bolmel. When he used Dr. Benjamin Bolmel, he used him in a very high, serious crime of killing people with chemical weapon. He was also coming out and saying, President Trump, we are fighting terrorists. We don't have terrorists in South Sudan. Those are white army. And white army are older than South Sudan. White army are older than Sudan. White army were there a long time during Gwek Mundeng time. White army did not start today. At least the Agwelek started yesterday. The Abrishok started yesterday. Everybody started, I think. But this white army are the one that fought the British people. If you don't know, Nuer tribe were not colonized. The white army stood so hard that they were not colonized to a level they had to have an agreement. So when other tribes were taken for slavery, Nuer were never taken for slavery. Nuer did not become slave to the British people. There was no slavery. So other tribes went through slavery, but Nuer were not taken for slavery. So they fought because the white army fought the British. So white army are stronger than even the SSPDF everybody is talking about today. Is older than Sudan. is older than, and this is a history that also needs to be written down. When we write the history down, we will not even open our mouth so fast and say the word white army. Because white army or Jeshimbur, this is something that is so unique. It also fought for our independence as the Nuer people. It fought so hard that Nuer could not be colonized. So this is also another sovereignty within the Nuer land that was done by the white army. So white army should also be honored in South Sudan. They should be respected because they stood so hard. They are the only people that makes the Nuer tribe not to be taken to slavery or not to be colonized by the British people. When you hear about this, it's not just a story. You can read it from books. This is a true story, and we also have evidence, and white people wrote about it, that Nuer were never colonized. When the white army fought with the British, it became so hard that they had to make an agreement with the white people. But they were not colonized. So when we talk about white army, when you want to abuse and call them terrorists, you are making a very big mistake. Because you should not call them terrorists. They are people that stood so hard with their people to make sure that their people were not colonized. And that's why you see them. Anytime that you come and you want to kill women and children, you will always see white army coming and standing in front of you. Why? Because their duty is to protect the women and the children and the land of the Nuer people. And it did not start today. It did not start yesterday. It started in the centuries. It started in the centuries. And that's why some of you came up with a book that is written and they say Nuer are hostile. They are saying this because they did not colonize the Nuer people. The Nuer people stood so hard, they fought, and they were not colonized. This is something that is very important that need to go into every ear of South Sudanese, that the Nuer people were never colonized. So the third law that President Kiir is using is Law 3. Conceal your intentions. He's using the law that says conceal your intention. How did he use this law? Kiir has delayed election multiple times. He hid his intention of not having an interest to do election, but to people like you, he will always come out, form a committee, form some team members. He will also form an IEBC people. People will even bring out budget. It will look like Salva Kiir want to do election, but from nowhere, they will say it cannot continue, and they will give themselves 2 years or 1 year or 3 years. And that's why you saw the first vice president came and said, if you destroy this peace agreement, there will be no another peace agreement that will be signed. And that's why the first vice president had to go to Juba and hand himself over to President Kiir. Even if what happened today, he did not catch the first vice president in a battlefield. The first vice president, because he got tired of the suffering of the people of South Sudan, and he already knew the drama that Salva Kiir is doing all the time will not end, he had to hand over himself to President Kiir in Juba. And President Kiir even did not even become ashamed. He picked him, put him under house arrest. You remember when the Pope came to South Sudan, Dr. Ruac asked Pope, who arrested me? Who put me under house arrest? President Kiir said that Dr. Ruac is not under house arrest. And then that was the first time Dr. Ruac was allowed to go and see his people. He went to the POC camp in Juba and he had a prayers and he saw the people that were in the camp. Why did he do that? He wanted to prove to the Pope that this is not true. You see, he can move. He concealed, he hid his information. That is how President Kiir have been playing with our head. sometimes giving reason like lack of preparedness. He will come and say, we cannot have election because we are not prepared. Cannot have election because we don't have a budget. We cannot. There's always those drama. And this is the same thing that he wants to do now. They want to reach somewhere and say we cannot do the election because the people are in the bush. The people are fighting. South Sudanese are dying. South Sudanese are in the refugees. This is another step that he wants to come out and say. After all this, you remember the 40 days, 45 days they gave to this team to work. What happened? President Kidd do something today. Tomorrow he does another thing. He do something today. You remember when he sent the team to go to Miami Peace in Nairobi, he already made another decision in Juba the other day. Again. So this is how President Kiir is playing with our head. We are all mixed up. We are all traumatized by President Kiir. So it's very important to understand how the brain of your leaders work. You cannot be fooled for 13 years by one man and you continue to back him. Even the Dinka community, you think he cares about you? Let's see. What statement did President Kiir say when this war of Abiemnom happened? Did he say anything? No. Why? Because it's the people of Upper Nile that are killing themselves. When we came out, this document that was written by Ateng, this document is not fake. I remember there was an information I leaked out before that was saying we must make sure we keep the Nuer fighting with the Dinkas that are their neighbors. We must make sure that the Murle fight with the Nuer, and then the Anywa, and then the Shiluk, and then the Dinka Padang, all these things. All those things is a plan that is in the practice. It was a private document that was written. But in reality, how did it come to be? Why did Ateng come back to the power? Ateng was the owner of the idea. He was the owner of the idea why Dr. Riek was arrested. He was the owner of the idea, him, Ateng, and then Bolmel, and the Gen Council of Elders. And I'm so happy that I know some few of them that are also, they always come and pretend this and this, and I know some of them. It's very important, and I really thank God that I managed to know some of them and their move, and watch how they move and how they write on social media. I am watching them closely and picking everything they are writing every day, and I analyze and I put in my files. That is something that is very important. If we don't put our brain down and see things the way we are supposed to see them, South Sudan will continue to suffer. That is for you. Analysis suggests that this delay may have more to do with maintaining power than with national readiness, which is an example of strategic ambiguity. President Kiir used two strategies in his leadership. He used two strategies. These two strategies. Okay, let me play this one. I bring you something. I preach about it sometimes back, but I think you people were sleeping. So...
bombardment, burnt villages, and targeted ethnic violence.